Hey, everybody, it's that time. And I just want to start by saying that we're testing some new features. So for those handful of you that saw us go live yesterday for a few minutes, thank you for that. And just want to let you know that whenever you're testing new technology, new features, there's always a chance that some things don't work out exactly. So just a little disclaimer, if that happens, that's okay. We're going to roll with the punches today. Donovan, speaking of rolling with the punches, I've got my co-host Donovan here. Why don't you say something? Say hello.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our new attempt at streaming across different platforms simultaneously. This is going to be an adventure.
That's right. So by different platforms, he means so we've got Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, right? Is that all the channels that we're going to right now? Different places at the same time?
Yep, I believe that's the list.
Great. So we always do the YouTube. So this is a little bit, we're expanding our reach. So if you're coming in from LinkedIn or from Facebook or something, this might be kind of a new experience, but hopefully a good one. So we're going to talk for a couple minutes about what we're doing today. And then because we've got a lot, we're just going to get right into it. So what you see behind me on the screen, this is the house that I'm in the process of setting up for Iron Man's house. Now, I'm going to full disclaimer here. Actually, I hadn't even seen the movie, so hopefully the Marvel fans out there don't hate me for that. But did a little bit of background research on it though, and so it's going to be kind of fun because what we need to do is, in order to render a house, we need a couple things. We're going to do an interior and an exterior, and we need to think about the house, but we also need to think about the context. So we can't, if we're going to do an exterior, we can't just render using V-Ray because we're in SketchUp here. So we're going to stay in SketchUp with V-Ray. We're going to need to be thinking a little bit, literally outside of the box, outside of the house. We need to go big or go home for this one. So that's what we're going to do. We've got a lot to do. It's a bit ambitious. And Donovan, anything you want to say or any fun facts you want to kick us off with before I just dive into it? Or,
Yes,
well, where's everyone? Hi from around the world, everyone. So also, if you see those coming in the chat, feel free to throw some of those my way because I can't see the hellos.
Yep, as I get the chat figured out, I'll be able to tell you what chats are coming in. Right now I don't see them yet, but we'll get it worked out and figured out. So
we'll get the chat. So oh yeah, that's right. So you're going to see we're testing out in just a minute. When I shrink my head down to small, you're going to see that the chats will show up on the screen. So all the chats from the different platforms are going to show up. So you're going to so I'll be able to see them actually if everything works okay, and then you'll be able to see them too. So you'll be able to comment. So everyone, with the comments, just kind of general rules. It's okay to kind of go off topic, but for the most part, let us know what you think. If there's a question, if you're stuck on something, you want to see something again, keep it, let's bring it back together, so we're all in one group. So that said, I'm going to shrink myself down right now. So give me 1 second as I press my magic button. Okay, and there's our chat. So let me see if I have to look over here to see it. Okay, I can't see it. I'm not going to worry about it. So what I want to do is start with, given the fact that I say we, but but with you all right now, attempting something a bit ambitious. So we have to basically apply the materials to a house. We have to build the context for it, set some camera angles, lighting, all that stuff. We're going to do 2 times 2 in 2 hours. So in order to do that, for me anyway, I like to be prepared. So I'm started with a little sketch to myself to think about like how I might do this. And so you have to explain, you'll have to excuse the crudity of the drawing. It's just really a visual outline for me to follow. So I'm going to start with the context, which is the terrain, which is going to be kind of fun because it's a really interesting site for those who've seen the movie. So we're going to geolocate it, but geolocation, it works great, but we're going to be rendering, so more detail, the better. So we're going to look at a high-res aerial, and we're also going to look at using a high-res height map, using an extension to bring in a height map. So that's going to be a fun process for those that haven't seen that. I use it all the time, but I don't think I've done it on a live stream. And then we're going to move into the house itself. So what we have to do is, I've already done a little bit of pre-work, and just because it's from the 3D warehouse, so I've already done that process of just cleaning it up, getting rid of old tags, stripping out bad materials, reversing faces. That was a bit of a chore, which I'll show you in just a minute what I mean by that. And what we're going to do is apply some materials, add some entourage, place it in context with the terrain, and and then from there adjust the terrain. And as needed, which is why I put vegetation in green, wherever we think we're going to pick our camera views, we should add some high quality vegetation assets to that part of the model, which is probably just going to be that front sort of area. And in a perfect world, I would do vegetation on the whole thing, but we're going to stay focused a little bit. And we're going to look at a couple different views. And I can't say that exactly that these are going to be it, but this is kind of in my head. There's a really cool pool deck, which shows, it looks out to the ocean. And then there's this really cool living room. It's a circular living room. If you've seen the movie, it's got this great panoramic glass. And there you go. So that's kind of what I'm going to use to keep us focused. And this is what I found online to basically use as a visual reference. So a couple of stills from the film, or a couple of maybe rendering shots that they did as part of like the pre-production. I'll go through these really quickly. So I'm going to be referring back to these. And there's actually two houses that are interesting. One of them, this one is in South Africa, and it's not exactly like the Tony Stark house, but it has these curves and infinity edge pool. And I thought this is pretty interesting. So I thought I would maybe use that as possibly a real world reference, even though it's not the same location, it's not the same house. It has some similar features, kind of fun. There's a shot from the interior, so give us a little bit of visual reference there. And again, that's this house in South Africa, sort of, I think it was modeled after, must have been modeled after the Tony Stark house, or the other way around. I don't know. What do you know about it, Donovan? Do you know anything that I don't know? You know a lot that I don't know.
About this house specific?
Yeah, about
I did
the
want
film
to
or about the
take
house,
a moment
or
to kind of call out where people are coming in from, because we usually do that at the start of this as people are joining our stream.
Yes, as we're getting warmed up, please say hi.
Again, a worldwide audience. We've got people here from the UK. We've got people here from Portland, from Norway, from Belgium, Connecticut, New York, Washington, New Zealand.
New Zealand. What time's in New Zealand right now? That's cool.
I don't know which side of the international date line are they on? Is it tomorrow? Yesterday? Something like that. But we, international audience. If you want to say where you're from, we'll shout it out for you. We got Jacksonville, Florida. But this house
everyone. Welcome to Jacksonville.
It's a pretty cool house. For those that don't know, like it is a fake house. That's okay. We're gonna make it real digitally. And this house was actually based on the design of a famous architect by the name of Wallace E. Cunningham, which I think I'm saying right. It was based on the Razor House, which was designed by Wallace E. Cunningham, and that's how they got the inspiration for this house. But we also got people from, again, New Zealand, from Canada, the UK, from India, from Iran, from Cyprus, Saudi Arabia, Paraguay, Dubai, Los Angeles, Michigan,
Dubai,
California. Holy cow. Yes.
Hey, stop there on California, because that's, first of all, that's where I am. And second of all, that's where this site is. So that's a great segue, unless, just because what I'm doing is, if you go back to my storyboard, the first thing I want to do here is give us a real world location, because even though this is a fantasy film, it's actually was placed in a real world location. It doesn't actually exist in reality, but it exists in the film in a real world place. And for those that are familiar with, I'm just going to zoom out just so I can tell you where we are in the world. Speaking of where we are in the world, Southern California, Los Angeles, Malibu. So we're going to kind of narrow down to this one specific point. You'll notice this point sticks out and almost directly south on the Pacific Ocean. And it's called Point Doom, but not D-O-O-M. Speaking of Marvel villains, it's actually D-U-M-E, I believe. So first thing I want to do is I want to grab that point, because that's where we're going to place the house. And I'm going to do a street map because I don't really need the aerial imagery. I'm going to show you why in just a second. So I'm going to select a region, grab that, make sure I grab just enough context. If I want, here's a little tip. If you don't need so much water and you want more landmass, you can just pull this thing down. It doesn't have to be centered. And I'm going to do the street map because you'll see why. I don't need the aerial. I'm going to bring in a different aerial in just a second. So cool. Well, let's just get to it because I've got a lot that I want to cover, and I want to see how far we can get. It'd be great if we can get 2 finished views. That would be awesome. So I'm just going to get right to it. And Donovan, as always, I like to just talk and talk and talk and talk. So you interrupt me anytime you need to, and I will pause, and we'll keep that conversation, that dialogue going back and forth. So until then, I'm just going to get going. So here it is. It's on this bluff, but in this case, what I want to do is just point out really quickly, if I turn my hidden geometry on, it's not bad. It's not bad, the level of detail that comes with the digital globe or the Bing Maps, whichever provider they're pulling the terrain mesh from. But with rendering, especially when we're going to place something, we're going to do some grading, you've got this pool and this vegetation, I want to see if I can get a little bit more detail than that. So what I'm going to do is just press kind of pause on that for a second. I have it here in the model. I'm just going to kind of leave it I'm just going to leave it there for a second, and I want to try something else. And let's hope this works, because I haven't done this. Like I said, I haven't done this on live stream yet. So I'm going to call this, what do we call this? Point Doom? Or we can just call this Tony Stark House. There we go, Point Doom. So I've saved that now. And then, because the reason why I'm going to save this is because it's a bit of a tricky procedure. What I want to do is pull open, start with an aerial. So I grabbed an aerial under my assets. I grabbed an aerial from Google Earth. Now, the reason why I did that is because I just liked the coloring better. It's not really necessary, you know, I mean, there's nothing wrong again with using the aerial from the digital globe, the one that comes in with geolocation. But I don't know. I just like the bright kind of poppy colors of this better. So I'm going to go that route. It's a scale. You can't see this. This is 100 feet. I'm going to go ahead and scale this. It's a little blurry because the picture downsamples, the texture downsamples as it comes in. So I'm going to measure that. I'm going to type in 100 feet. It's going to ask me if I want to resize it. Yes, I should do. And then I never trust that. I always have to go back and double check just to make sure that that was correct. So I'll look at something like a known dimension, like a roadway center line to curb edge, and that is it's reading at 11 foot 6 inches, and if I pull it just a little bit more, it'll hit 12 foot. In the United States, 12 foot is probably a typical travel lane. So I'm going to call that to scale. So the next thing, this is the fun part. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but if I pull open, I'm just going to pull open very quickly a web browser because I want to show you where I got this information from. But if I come down to my data, Tangram height mapper. So basically you can get, this is a free website. It's called Tangram's height mapper. It's a height map. So what I would do is I would turn my map lines on. I would go to Southern California, and I'm not going to do this all because I've already done it because it takes a few minutes to get everything kind of scaled correctly. And you can see that little tip, that little point that's sticking out. That's Point Doom. So I'm going to scroll all the way down, and you can see as I zoom in, the height map is going to give me more information. Now, this is really, really cool because it doesn't look like there's that much there. It's just, okay, that's high, that's low, black is low. But when you zoom in, you're going to get, when I convert this to a mesh, you're going to get all kinds of little ridge details that I don't currently have. So I take a screenshot of this, and I match it up with the scale of the aerial, right? Just kind of eyeball it. And then that's what I'm starting with. So just want to give you a little bit of context as far as where I got that and why I'm using it. So check this out.
Actually, I want to jump in real quick while you're kind of
please do.
Thought. We do have some comments coming in since we are doing this cross-platform.
Yep.
There seems to be some issues of freezing and just quality issues on platforms like LinkedIn and Facebook. If you're on either of those platforms and you find that the video feed is less than optimal, you could always jump over to YouTube on the SketchUp page on YouTube. Our live should be listed. So if you're having quality issues over on LinkedIn or on Facebook, come over to YouTube, jump in, join us on there because we seem to be doing okay on YouTube. Haven't gotten any bad feedback from that, but have gotten comments for LinkedIn and Facebook. So just to let everybody know and continue.
Yep. And that's a great point. Thank you for that. If anyone, we're still working out, we don't know how each platform works. We don't know how to fine tune those settings exactly. We're just starting to do this process. I have put up here on the screen is if you go to YouTube, SketchUp's YouTube channel, you go over to the live section. And then you can find us. We're the last one in the queue, or we're the most recent one that says live right now. You just click on that. So if for any reason you want to follow along, and we hope you do, and it's not optimal in your platform, come and join us over on YouTube and we will see you there. So thanks, Donovan, for that.
Like you said, this is an experiment for us, and this is a bigger audience that we're trying to make sure that everybody has the best experience possible, because we do these every week. We want to make sure that we're reaching as many people as we can, the best way we can, and this is going to be a new stepping stone for us in that direction.
Cool. All right, well, thanks. I will continue on. So what I wanted to point out was there's a great extension from TomTom called Mesh from Height Map. And what that does, it's going to ask me basically for a height map. And I want to give you a little, for anyone who has tried this method or is going to try this method after this stream, I want to point out that when I download the height map, it could be 2,500 pixels wide. You do not want to bring in a height map 2,500 pixels wide, because what it's going to do is it's going to convert pixels to triangle, to mesh points or edges. So what I do is I downsample. I take that big screenshot or that export that I take of the height map, and I downsample it down to something between 500 pixels. In this case, this is such a big site, I actually take it down to 250 pixels wide. So it's actually a really, really small height map that I'm using. You can see point doom, 250 pixels. I'm going to click that, and you'll see what happens here in just a second. I want to grab this corner, and I'm going to match up. If everything works, then it lines up. And now what it's doing is the wonders of technology and Ruby scripting. It's now coding that height information. And I kind of want to go through this a little bit quicker because I don't really need to explain every step. I just want to get her done. So what I wanted to do is turn my profiles off. And the reason why is because, profiles off. I don't need them on because you're going to see all those extra ridge lines. So now that's an exaggerated scale. So what I'm going to do is turn my terrain on, my terrain from my geolocation import. And I want to kind of bring those in line. And I might switch over to X-ray mode here. And I'm just getting it close. It does not have to be perfect for this. I'm just kind of saying, okay, that's about there. And the reason why I'm doing that is because what I want to do is the height mapper gave me the height, what it's not doing, it's not telling me what the elevation is. So it's not telling me what that high point is. So I am going to use the the location terrain. And I need to make sure that these are sitting on the same plane in order for this to work. So I drop that down, and then I'll move my aerial up. This is kind of fun. This is the fun part. I like to get in the weeds with this kind of stuff. And I know that, so here's where you can see the difference in detail starts to show. Because what I'm doing is I'm now using the vertical scale tool to kind of figure out how tall that needs to be. And so as long as the two of them are sort of intersecting each other, I feel comfortable that that's sort of a good scale to use. So I'm going to go with that. And I'm going to turn off my location terrain. I don't need it anymore. And then what I'm going to do is now I'm going to paint. I'm going to paint it. So that's all there. So you can see the detail. Before I paint it, let me show you. You can see the detail in that mesh. So you remember that location terrain? Do you remember the size of those triangles? We'll now compare the size of these triangles. So what you're seeing is you're getting all this little tiny, sorry if I'm trying not to bounce around too much, but I'm in parallel projection. You're getting all these little, like that's the beach and the ridge line and the coves and stuff like that. So for me anyway, it's much more detailed, even at 250 pixel height map. So that's what I'm going to use. Explode that. Grab that image. Let's see if I do this right. I think I have to paint this onto the face in order to get the projected image to show up correctly. Okay, I don't need that. I don't need that. I'm gonna keep it. So I'm just gonna put it on a hidden layer. And I said layer, but Freudian slip. They've been tags for several years. I know better. I will still say it. You'll notice I'll still say it.
We know this. People do.
Okay.
Some people slip people's tags.
So let me switch back to perspective mode. So that's it. That was the first step in our little storyboard. So that was a 10-minute effort there for me to kind of explain that not only do we have a higher res from a polygon standpoint, but we've got a higher res from an aerial standpoint. And I think that's going to be a good starting point. It's not perfect. There's more we could do to get higher detail, but for right now, that's going to work for us. The other thing I want to do is I'm going to, before I move on back to the house, I'm going to come over here to a section plane and I'll see if this works. I haven't actually tried this. What I want to do is take a section from underneath, and I'll show you why. What I want to do is kind of see if I can pull a section of just the top of the cliff. And the reason why, because when I place the house, I don't really need to see all that context unless I want to. So I can just use a shortcut and I can toggle that on and off. Now that's way quicker than if I was to try and clip this out and go in and clip this peak, this ridge line, and then paste that in as its own group. I'm just going to try this. I've never tried this before, but I'm going to try using the section cut as just a way to sort of focus in on just the areas that I want to work. So yeah, that's it.
I know we've just started on this, but people are coming in saying that you're blowing their minds. Like,
okay,
we're one step in and you're already rocking their world.
Just wait. We've got a lot of fun. We've got a lot more. If this blows your mind, we're just warming up. Okay. So, speaking of blowing your mind, that was funny because this shot of the helicopter blowing the Stark house up. If you've seen the film, spoiler alert, I think the house does take some damage on from that helicopter attack. So
I guess it would be a spoiler alert for you too, since you haven't seen it.
Yes, that right. Yeah, now I have to decide whether I want to go. I kind of do want to watch it after this, because now that I feel like I know the house so well. So what you saw in the intro screen, I had this up because it just felt like it was more interesting because I'm starting from scratch. So I put this up. So when I said that I had already gone through, if I go to my monochrome mode here, so this is texture mode, this is monochrome mode. It didn't look any different. That's because I'd already wiped all the textures out from the 3D warehouse model. That's a bit of a pain in process. As I said in the intro, if anyone's joining late, it's a bit of a pain to take somebody else's model and get it to work, especially when you know you're going to render with it. So what I did, I'm not going to go through this, do this with you. It'll take probably 30 minutes for me just to clean this model up. So I went ahead and did it before the stream, but everything looks good. So I'm in monochrome mode, which means that any reverse faces will show. So if you kind of zoom around, I just kind of look around, there was a lot of this kind of stuff. And I don't know how this model was built exactly, but if I turn my hidden geometry on, you can see that this is two faces, but it's acting like one face. So if I went ahead and reversed this, you'll see what it did is I still have reversed faces. And not only should you not have reversed faces anyway as a model, it just has good technique, but what you don't want to do is, so I'm going to undo that. And then I'm going to come in here, turn my hidden geometry, and I'm going to go ahead and reverse this face. So what you don't want to do, especially when rendering like V-Ray materials and stuff, they don't like reverse faces. So if you see some down below here, I may have missed a few. And the reason why is because I pretty much knew I wanted to take a shot from an angle from this side. So anything that's sort of below ground, I wouldn't worry too much about. But so that's that. So that was what I did. I spent quite a bit of time reversing faces. Now, the second thing I did was I went in and I grouped everything by material. And what I mean by group by material is what material, not that it is, but what material it's going to be. So all the glass gets grouped together. So exploded and then regrouped as glass, or glazing or whatever you want to call it. And so all the concrete. So this is all the concrete, which is the roof and the walls, not the flooring. The flooring I put as a different, I put it on a different tag. And if I go to my color by tag mode, it's easier to see. I usually work in color by tag mode when I do this. And the reason why is because it's easy for me to see what objects are on what tag. And I need that because when I go to apply materials, it's going to really help the process out. So again, a little bit of maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes of pre-work might save me 2 hours or something down the road. So hopefully that's kind of a common practice for people as far as organizing your model. I have a little boulder here that you can't see, but I still put it on its own tag, just out of good housekeeping. So the next step in this process is to get this house render ready. Now we could do it two ways. We could copy this in and we can merge them now and then do it, or we can do it separately. I almost think I'm going to do the opposite of what I said, is I want to maybe merge them together and put them in the main model and then start to apply materials. The reason why is because when I do a test render, I'll have that context rather than not having it, which is here. If I do some test renders, I won't have that context. There's a reason why, if you're working on two very large models, like a very large landscape site and a very heavy architectural model, it's totally fine to work on those separately and then just bring them in. And then when you do your render, you actually have a third model, which is a render model. So if you have problems, if you feel like you're hitting your performance limits, there you go. So you can see my colors You can see my color by tag. So if I turn any of these off, there's also some stuff in the interior. I think I gutted anything. I pretty much gutted the interior so that it was mostly blank. Yeah.
Well,
So,
I kind of want to jump in here because we have had a few comments all along the same lines. Since we are doing this across platforms, I want to let everybody know that after the live stream is done, these videos are automatically uploaded to our YouTube channel. So every live we've ever done in the past, including this live that we're doing today, if you're watching it on a platform other than YouTube and you missed something, there's a part you wanted to go back and watch, or something you didn't catch, you want to get deeper into the weeds, into the nitty gritty of all of the complex things that are going on screen right now, be sure to go check out the YouTube channel, and you can catch that live that's automatically published at the end of every live on Fridays. So just to let everybody know. And just to let you know, Eric, don't forget to save.
Save, thank you. Oh, you know what I didn't do? For those of you that didn't see that I do save continuously, I do have a tiny little app that I sometimes use and sometimes I forget to. It's called Keycaster. So watch when I hit save, you should see it in the bottom corner where the chat is. So Command S, Command S, Command S, Command S. You should see a lot of that. If not, if you don't see that Command S, definitely please, thank you. Please and thank you. Let me know and I will save. Yeah, so I don't know where this house goes. This is kind of the fun part. And I may want to turn my section cut off for this because I may want to see the context. But, oh, and to your point, Don, I mean, that was a good point. This is just us having fun. This isn't a webinar. This isn't like you have to do these steps. This is not, there's no grades or anything. Like I kind of put my professor hat on and I say, step 1, step 2, you are not meant to like follow along or anything. This is totally for fun. So we're just goofing. So we go a little fast. That's why. You know, because that's how these things roll. That's how we roll here. So I'm going to go back to that reference image. It's a little difficult to tell if I go to my references and I open those up. It's a little, oh, I already had those open up. I just hid that. It's a little difficult to tell. I think that they just sort of gave it a real world location and then they just made up, then they just modeled everything else. So like this cliff does not look like exactly the cliff that it's sitting on. The location, it's sort of a little bit, it's more flat up here than I think it is in the real world. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to take our guess, a best guess at it. Like this one here, doesn't this shot look like it's overhanging the cliff? But then this shot, well, maybe it does look like it. This part is overhanging, but this part feels,
yeah, for sure.
It feels different. Yeah. So I'm just saying that like films, right? They're going to take artistic liberty. So we are going to do the same. We're going to take some artistic liberty. So what I'm going to do is just get it placed. What I think is cool. I know this floats. I want this to be grounded. I want this to be grounded. But here's the thing. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. Is that I've got this retaining wall here for this pool. But there's a lot of it exposed. So what I might do is come over here turn my hidden geometry for this on. And this is where I'm going to launch a plugin called Artisan. So my background's landscape. So Artisan's a great tool for kind of sculpting landscape. I'm going to go into my terrain. And I want to kind of go quick here because I want to get this kind of situated in the next couple minutes so we can get to applying materials. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select the area that I kind of want graded. And I don't know exactly how I want. There's this cool tool called a select brush in Artisan. So what a select brush does is the radius here was 150 feet, which is a little bit too big. So I type in 50 foot. So if I undo that selection and I type this blue one here is a select brush. So what it's going to do, it's a little bit of a delay here. You can see when I click it, if I click down, what it's going to do, it's going to select everything within that brush. And the cool thing about this is that I can go in and kind of select just the areas that I think I'm going to want to sculpt. So in this case, I know that I'm going to want to bring the grade up on that side, even if it doesn't show in my camera. And I know that I want to bring it up on this side just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is switch over. And then I'm going to switch over to this red tool. Donovan, have you ever used Artisan?
I have not used Artisan. I keep hearing about it to the point where I want to use Artisan, but I have not had the pleasure yet.
Yeah, Artisan's kind of for me, it's just intuitive. Like I do love sandbox tools. I use sandbox tools all the time for sculpting. But I will say that, compared to using the smooth, when I use, which is a funny word, smooth, But compared to just what I'm doing right now is I'm just clicking. I'm setting a radius for the brush, and then I'm just going here and I'm clicking around. And if I need to, I can go set X-ray mode so that I can see into it. You can see what I'm doing is I'm just lifting the terrain up just a little bit so that that retaining wall, that pool, can you see? I'll zoom in a little bit if it's so you can see it. Now sometimes I mess up. You can see here that it's very sharp in that point, in which case, because I'm looking at it from the wrong angle, in which case I might have to come back to my sculpting brush and actually point. Sculpting brush, do I have that selected? Yeah, so what you want to do is point down instead of up. So right now it's pointing up. So if I press down, and you can control, so if you have a really big arrow, it's going to push down a lot. And if you have a small arrow like this, it's going to push down just a little bit. So the cool thing about that is you get sort of this fine-tunement, and then I kind of created a little sharp point there. Now you could adjust the vertices individually if you really wanted to, but that's really all I wanted to do. That was all.
We do have someone asking, what is your command shortcut for turning sections on and off?
I put it as Shift S, and the reason why is because I use Shift because a lot of the commands and a lot of the keys on the left, like Q, E, R, F, D, C, those are already taken. So I just use Shift, and then I do S for section, and I do Shift T for toggle. And what toggle does is it toggles the section plane on, in which case I can manually turn it on and off, or I can use Shift S, and Shift S turns that section on. So Shift S and Shift T for me. And I'll be honest with you, that's one that I just started using. So this is, I love it and hate it when I learn something that I should have been doing 10 years ago. It's like, how have I not done? How have I gone so long where I would go up here and I'd go view, and I'd go turn section cuts on, and then I'd go double click, activate cut. That's, nothing wrong with that method. It's a little bit slower. So you can see when I stretched this out, it did stretch the image out. So that might be something, to consider. But I'm not going to worry about it, because if you take it from above, I don't know. I'm just going to put some plants down there. I'm just going to cover that up. So there we go. Are we okay with, Donovan, are you okay with the location?
It's looking great. It is always an adventure watching you work and being a part of this, because it makes me realize that SketchUp, it's not just the simple shapes like I can currently do in SketchUp. There is so much more you can do with it, and in just the first steps that you've gone through to do this project. I'm with the audience. You've already blown my mind. It's okay. Amazing.
Well, you know what I love, and I'll tell you this, and I know that we're on the SketchUp group here. I want to hang on. Let me go 100 foot. I'm going to bring my radius up. What I love is exactly that. It's this. What else can this do? I know that that's maybe what it is or was designed to do, but I like figuring out. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to push this down. Sorry, I'm talking and modeling at the same time. And I'm being careful because I don't want to push down too much. So you wouldn't want to do this, by the way. Like if this was a real site and you went in and just scraped the top of the hill, that would be pretty bad ecologically. But we're in Fantasyland. What I want to do is take this down a little bit, because there is an entry road here, and I don't need to see all of it. But I am covering it. You can see that I am covering like this motor court. So I am just pushing the terrain down. And the only reason I'm only doing it I don't need to do the whole entry drive but the reason why I'm doing it is because the terrain may be sticking up in the interior, like you might see, and you don't want to go into the house and be like, oh, there's vegetation coming out of the ground. Okay, so yeah, so what I was saying there, I can't talk and model at the same time, is I love how it I don't know what the limit is. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what the ceiling is. I keep like trying to push it and see when I hit the ceiling, and there's some things I hit the ceiling and go, okay, well I pushed it a little too far. And there's other things where I go, oh wow, I pushed way further than I thought I could. And that's for me a lot of the fun for how I work in SketchUp. So okay, so that's good. I know I'm spending a lot of time on this, but this is kind of important. So you'll notice if I turn my color by tag on, everything's still tagged the same way it is. So I think we're ready to start doing some materials. I think we should apply some materials, because otherwise it's gonna take forever. We're gonna do materials, then entourage, set up camera.
Let's do it. I'm ready when you're ready.
You're ready. Okay, good. Everyone's ready. So I'm gonna close Artisan right now. Again, great tool. It's a paid extension. I always say paid extension. The reason why I say that is because we don't get paid to promote these extensions. So I use it, but also, keep that in mind. I know that budgets are a big deal for people. But then again, if you use it, if it saves you 2 hours and it costs $40 or something, then probably paid for itself right there. So what I want to do is I want to open up, this is the time where I'm going to kind of I'm going to do a test render. So this is what's called an infinite plane. So I'm going to set an infinite plane right there on my ocean. And the reason why I'm doing that is because in V-Ray, you can actually apply a material to your infinite plane. So this is going to be funny here. This is funny. This happens sometimes and sometimes it doesn't. I'm going to get multiple asset editors pop up. I don't know what setting is causing that. So I was hoping it wouldn't do that today. It looks like it is. So sorry about that. As they say, my friends up north in Vancouver, where we had base camp. Sorry. I need to find a water texture. So I'm going to type in waves. And this is the blessing and the curse that is Cosmos, which we're going to dive into a little bit more detail. But Cosmos is basically it's all of the entourage and HDRIs. You can download all these from the cloud now. Problem is the materials used to be in the materials. You used to have them downloaded on your hard drive. Now, instead of it giving you thousands of materials that you may not use, you have to actually download them yourself. So I'm going to click on Waves. It's already been downloaded. Now it's imported. See, it says import. I'm going to close this, close any duplicates that might have shown up. And this is where I get to take this and I get to apply it to the selection. So you'll notice that I have the infinite plane selected, apply the water texture to the selection. And if everything worked, I'm going to go ahead and hit a test render. Sorry, I have one setting I want to do in my settings because this is a brand new file. So this is brand new settings, haven't done anything. I do turn progressive off. Progressive basically means it keeps rendering and rendering until you tell it to stop. I want to bring my quality all the way down because these renderings I want to go fast today. I want to turn my denoiser on. The denoiser takes out that noise artifacts. The last thing I always do with my V-Ray setup is, for me, I match my viewport, at least if I know unless I'm going to do a portrait, in which case a safe frame will pop up. And I don't want to use a safe frame. I want to just match my viewport. So that's pretty much it. That's what I do. That's my setup, and I'm ready to go. So let's go ahead and test render that. Yeah, this is always like when you're live, it's funny because some people are like, oh, I wouldn't try rendering live. And then it's like, well, yeah, I know. Okay, so what you can see is what's happening. If you look around, you can go all the way to the horizon and you can see that my water texture, my waves, are going all the way to the horizon. That's what the infinite plane does, which is pretty cool. The only problem is now it looks like it's sitting, somehow it's sitting below my Google aerial. So I want to pull that up, I don't know, 10 feet. Here's what I don't want to do. I don't want it to cover my beach. So here's my beach. There it is. So I went up 10 feet and it sort of covered my beach. So maybe I want to go back down. Go 5 feet. I don't know. I'm just guessing. 6 feet? 7 feet? Oh, that's when that's when my mesh starts showing up. I'm going to go 8 feet, 9 foot. All right, that's fun. Okay, so I'm going to go 9 foot, and that covers that up. So a little bit of mesh sticking out. If I want to clean that up, I can, but let's just wait. Let's just come back to that. We'll just come back to that. So there you go. Oh, so I'm running an interactive render. So that's how I can you see the chat? Am I blocking the chat? Should I move it over a little bit? Chat is important.
You're good at the moment.
Okay, cool. So the interactive render is cool. So the interactive render I will do as I'm sort of setting things up. So early on in the process, I'll just use the interactive. And then when I'm ready when I start adding lights and stuff, I'll switch to another one. So another setting, my regular static render. So this is kind of cool. That's all I really needed to do, just to, add the ocean, make sure it looks good. Looks good. Now we get to have some fun with materials. This is the challenging part, but also the fun part. So this is where I'm going to go in, and you can do two things with materials. In V-Ray, you can apply them to a tag, and that's why you'll see in just a second, that's why I tagged them this way. So I can say I want to apply it to the glazing tag, and then the material will apply to anything on the glazing tag. So hopefully it's all just glass. Or what you can do is say apply to selection. So if you don't have them tagged that way, you can go into your model and select just this group, for example, and say I want to apply it to everything within that group. And that's cool too. So depending on that sort of level of control, if you want to apply it to everything, you say apply to tag, if your tags are organized, or you apply it to a selection. So let's go apply it to some tags. I do need some materials first.
speaking of that, we had a couple questions earlier in the chat
Yes,
about
please ask questions.
in glass and V-Ray, does it have to be a solid or can it be just faces?
It does not have to be solid, but what glass in V-Ray needs is it needs to have a thickness. So maybe that's what you're asking. I think that's what you're asking. It needs a thickness. If it's a single plane, or you're going to get some distortion. And if it's especially if you have a reverse face. I had one model one time where I had a reverse face and I didn't know that I had a reverse face because I wasn't checking it. And I got this weird distortion happening. So you want to make sure it has a thickness and you want to make sure there's no reverse faces. So that's it. I imported my glass. That's a great question. Thank you. Please keep them coming. So what I'm going to do is apply this to, when it says layer, it says apply to layer because I think Chaos, they didn't update it to tag, but that means the same thing. So I'm going to say apply this to glaze. So if I click that, what's going to happen if I get out of my color by tag mode, you can see I'm going to undo that actually. No, actually I'm going to do it again. I won't undo it. I'm going to do it again with the concrete. There you go. Now I have glass. So that was it. Just apply it to, and it overwrites anything that's there. So let's do that again, but this time I'm going to do it without the color by tag mode. I need to find, this is where it's just kind of annoying because you have to search each time. So if I want to find concrete, I have this concrete flooring. I don't know if that's the one I used when I was just playing around. So let's try it. So I'm going to import that in. And then the same process here, close any duplicate windows, open up my asset editor, back and forth. Here's what I'm going to do. Concrete flooring, I'm going to say apply to the concrete wall. So where's I should have concrete wall. So apply to concrete wall. And then you can see what happens there. It applies the whole thing. Now, for those of you that do know V-Ray or use V-Ray, I will point out a little tip here. Now, there's this thing, if I go back to the concrete, it doesn't really matter, I don't think, for the waves, but there's this thing called triplanar projection. It's a little bit of a fancy term. If you click on this here, it's going to use this triplanar mapping. So by default, that's off. So if you click yes on that, and then I'm going to re-import that, I'm going to do it again, and I'll show you why. So if you do it again, then I come over here and I say, no, so this number 2 has triplanar mapping applied to it. Sorry, this number 1 that's appended to it. I'm going to say apply to layer concrete wall. So what that's going to do, it's going to allow me to go in, and if I wanted to rotate the material in SketchUp, or if I wanted to scale the material in SketchUp, V-Ray will register that. Whereas if you don't have that, V-Ray will you have to make the edits in V-Ray. So I know a lot of people are used to making edits in here, which I know it doesn't give you as many options as V-Ray does, but if you do at least come in here, if I wanted to make this concrete texture bigger, I might make that 20 feet so that it feels more like concrete wall instead of concrete, like little fine concrete that you'd see in the flooring. So you can see how I edited it and the scale changed.
There is a comment about using slightly rusty concrete as a building texture, which kind of begs the question, how varied and how detailed can you get with textures such as these in V-Ray?
You can do a lot. So first of all, if you want to make your own textures, you can go, there's some great like Quixel, Mixel, which is used for Unreal Engine, is free to use. There's also, if you have the money, Substance Painter is incredible. Those are a little bit complicated, so I wouldn't, if you're not in that world, I maybe wouldn't recommend it. But here, there's also the ability that you can add what's called dirt, which gives it a little bit almost like dirt streaks. I'm not going to do that for this because actually I'm not really good at it, and so I don't want to look stupid. But there is way to add sort of some patina here in V-Ray. But if you really want something custom, you would do it in like a Quixel mixer or a what would be the other one I just said, Substance Painter. So I want to grab a concrete flooring, and I want it to be a little bit different. So this wall is cool. I'm actually going to download that because I might use that for something else. And yeah, and see some of these here, like they do, again, some of these do have that sort of aging, some of that dirt and stuff to it. So it's really just, how do I get to, okay, there we go. I have to X out of that. I need a concrete flooring, and I want it to be different from this concrete wall. So I think I'm just going to grab something like this, concrete white. I want to lighten it up a little bit. So I'm going to grab that. And I'm going to import that, and I'm going to come over here. And so this is a little bit, I don't know how our viewers feel. It's not the most exciting part. I mean, this is just applying materials. So I'm going to apply this to the concrete floor. I'm only going to do this a couple more times, so I'm just kind of warning you. I'm going to take this new concrete. I'm going to say apply that to the deck, which is going to do it to the paving. And then I'm going to take this one that looked like board form concrete, and I'm going to apply that to what I call miscellaneous, which is going to put it on all the other wall stuff. So where was the one that would look like the board form? This one. So import that. It should be concrete simple. Apply this to, I'm going to do this to miscellaneous. That's pretty much everything else. And then I want to come and do, I think, one more vegetation, because I do have some landscape areas that show up. So I do want something that I think represents grass. So if I go, what's cool about this is if you have downloaded, like if you do use favorite materials, you can download them here. They show up in downloaded. You can always save them in different locations. You can bring them in, in your own libraries. So there are ways that you can use these materials so you don't have to go into this process every single time. Like in this case, I've got this grass. That's a little bit bright, actually. I think I'm going to try and find one that matches sort of the seaside aesthetic grass a little bit better. So with grass, you're going to get, if you don't specify material, you're going to get actual physical grass, or you're going to get, you can also get materials as well. So I want something that's a little bit on like the lighter side and not so bold and saturated.
There is a question that came in about setups for Mac when using V-Ray. Like what kind of setups we have for Macs when using V-Ray, because a lot of this does seem very resource heavy in terms of the textures and the colors and everything that we're doing.
I'm on an iMac Pro. So that's actually an old machine, believe it or not. It came out in 2017. They've discontinued it, and I still use it as my daily powerhouse machine. The thing's amazing. I'm not going to compare it to like somebody who does renderings every single day and they have an RTX chip, GPU. They build, because if you really need powerful rendering, you would go to the cloud. So you can do two things. You can set up render nodes. So V-Ray gives you a render node. What it means is it lets you render on two machines at once. The fancy term is distributed rendering. So basically, if you wanted to buy more nodes, they're cheaper. So you don't have to buy a full license. You buy like 3 nodes, and you have 3 old PCs sitting there. But why waste them? Maybe they're processors are still pretty good. So what you do is you end up basically daisy chaining. You build a little mini render farm. Or even if you just have like me, I have a laptop and I have my iMac Pro. So it's 10 cores plus another 4 cores. So what you do is you just basically send the node, set it up so that they speak to each other. A little bit complex, so I'm not going to do it here. And then what you can do is you can render. And what you're going to see is you're going to use the processor from the other machine. Or if you have 2 or 3, if you want to pay for the nodes, you can do it that way. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I think there are some tricks that you can do to help that process. The first thing is just make sure you've got the machine, that you've got the machine, the power that you need. And then the second thing is if you need more, you can always render to the cloud render. Basically, you buy credits and you say, let the supercomputer, let Chaos supercomputer do it. Apply to layer. Pool. I'm almost done. I got one more to do, and I need to find water. This one. This one is clear water. The ocean water is dark, but the pool water should be clear. So I'm going to import that, and I'm going to come over here to Waves 02, apply to my water layer, and I think that's it. So that was, hopefully that wasn't too painful for everybody to sit and watch.
It's all part of the process.
It's all part of the process, as they say. It is. It's a little bit for me therapeutic. People are like, oh, especially with AI. Oh, AI, you just press a button, you just generate it. Yeah, yes. But there's value in the process. I don't mind this. This is fun. You listen to some music, you get a snack, you just go and you get into the rhythm. It's not I don't feel like, oh, if I could just press a button, just press one button and it renders instantly. Maybe some days I need that, but most days I don't mind doing this. It takes half an hour, it takes 20 minutes. So let's go ahead and test that render now. I'm going to go ahead and test that again, speaking of which, and hopefully everything works. No one said save, so okay, I didn't. This is going to be a little bit tricky because I'm going to open up my shadows palette, which is window shadows, because the glazing may not look transparent depending on whether the whole thing is sitting in the shade or not. Because remember, this is south facing. So I should be able to hit, it's probably just because of those overhangs. So maybe I want to do a later in the year. I don't know. So what you can see though is this concrete is getting a nice reflection. right? So that's kind of cool. And then depending on the angle, you're going to get that reflection coming off the glazing there. So that's kind of cool too. So for the most part, those materials, they're starting to look pretty good. I think, and I'm going to press pause there. And the reason why is I'm going to go back to my reference imagery. And this is a photograph from the one in South Africa, which is the one that was actually built. And then this is kind of a photograph of a still from the film, right? And then this is, I think, another photograph of, this might be the Razor House, actually, in La Jolla. I think that one's in the Razor House in La Jolla, California. Oh no, this says Pengilly. Pengilly is the name of that house that looks like the house. It's in this one. This is in South Africa. I thought I had pictures of the Razor House. Okay, talking to myself here. Thank you for humoring me.
That's okay. Hey, we did have a very important question come through. What is your number one go-to modeling snack / music combo?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, snack, I usually get something that doesn't require two hands, so something that you can just mindlessly grab. So something like Cheez-It crackers or some salted almonds or cashews are easy. Just grab a handful and go. You don't take your eyes off the screen. You don't move your butt, right? And then the music for me is just, I try and find like hour-long or 2-hour-long playlists because I don't like changing songs and I don't like being interrupted by a song I don't like. So I'll just find something like electronic music that goes for an hour, like a DJ set or something. So it's kind of fun. Yeah. So what does everyone else use? What gets them going?
That's a good question. I'll let you know once comments start coming in.
So I'm going to, this is where I'm going to add one more section cut. So you can see I'm cutting once up through the terrain and I'm going to cut once down. And the reason why is because, and I'm not an architect or an interior designer, so I'm not going to pretend that I know what I'm doing here. Or act like I know what I'm doing here. But what I will do is say that I do need to get inside of the house. And it's sometimes I want to go inside outside. So using that same section trick where you can just toggle the section on and off is a great way to do that. And what you can do is you can set that up to, this is a good chance, this is a good time for me to open my scenes. And I'm going to go ahead and add that to a scene. I don't want to use some things, scene thumbnails, and I don't want to set camera location. So I'm going to take off camera location and I'm going to create section. And I'll show you why I want to do that is because unlike using the toggle, I can add another one. I always forget, our sections, they're tied to styles, aren't they? Would that be right?
That's a fantastic question, which is my answer when I don't know the answer to a question.
So this should be, if I did this right, the section turns on. So what's cool about this, about doing it with scenes like this, is that when I go down into this, I can toggle it on and off using, I don't have to use the keyboard shortcut, I can use scenes. Sometimes that works better for me. Like sometimes I'll add one here and I'll come over to the style and I'll change it to color by tag. And then I'll add a style and update the scene. Color by tag, whoops. Color by tag. Get on with the show, Eric. You are 53 minutes in. You haven't even rendered anything yet. Save. The reason why I do that is because then what I can do is I basically have these sort of scenes set up that I can toggle back and forth from. And that's just kind of cool because I don't save them to a camera view. So whatever part of the model I'm working in, I can just turn those on and off. So if I wanted to cut that section, now that's only that one section, right? Because remember that if you want to do two sections, here's what you have to do. You have to take a section and you have to copy it and you have to go into a group and you have to paste it. When you have two sections that are occupying the same space, only one can be active at the same time. So if I activate this cut, then I pop out of there. What you're going to see is I have two sections being cut at the same time. So I'm cutting the slope off that I don't need to keep my performance running fast, and I'm cutting into the building so that, and let me see, do I need to add a style for that? I'm not sure. Section cut, update, CBT, section cut, working. All right, so I can kind of go back and forth between these at any time, just so that I'm staying organized. Pro tip, Let's add some entourage. Let's do this. Let's populate this. Let's populate this living room. So
while you do that, it sounds like crunchy snacks seem to be the snacks of choice, like chips.
Oh, chips are the best. Chips are the best.
And celery. As for music, ASMR rainy music, video game music, Coltrane or Bollywood.
Coltrane, that's good.
Or
jazz
music.
is jazz
throw
would be
that in
cool.
there too.
Jazz would be Bollywood. I have not tried that. That would be fun. I love it when you mix, like, when you like mix stuff, something about the beat. I think it's about the beats per minute, which I don't know, but I know studies show like about productivity. And I don't know that any of that's true. I think it's a personal preference, but I think that there's something to like the beats per minute. So let me,
Then we did have
for me,
comment coming in saying, I forgot that you can edit scenes from the bar at the top.
yeah, I don't know. I always do that because I don't like opening and closing the panels. You'll notice I don't use my panels very much. The only one that I really leave open all the time almost is the tags, because I think staying organized is important. But I try not to like open. I like to have everything nice and clean. I like to have a nice clean screen. So speaking of clean screen, one thing I noticed when we did the render test is we didn't have a sky. That's because by default, and let me stop this, because by default, I'm going to turn the dome light off. By default, you're using V-Ray's sunlight. So if I hit a render I'm in the interior here. So if I do a quick render on this, let's see what happens. Okay, so you can see you're just getting that gray, it's just kind of that gray bar. And that's not very interesting, I think, for a cinematic thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop that. And I already put in a dome light here. A dome light is basically allows us to put in a light texture. So again, I'm going to try and not put I'm wearing my teaching hat, and I'm going to try not to overly teach. So I'm going to turn the dome light off. I'm just going to do it. And if somebody has a question, please ask it and I'll slow down or I'll answer it, but I'll try not to explain too much, more than I have to. So with the dome light is basically I get to go browse online and I get to find, in this case here, I have what's called industrial sunset, which is this kind of cool, the sun's going down, but it's got clouds in the sky, so it's got some cool blue colors. And I got another one that's going to be also called clear sky. So it doesn't have clouds, but the sun is a little bit lower in the sky. So I just was playing around. These aren't exactly perfect, but I think they're going to work. I just downloaded them because I thought they looked cool. So let's try it. I'm going to click open. So I'm now pathed this. I've now pathed this HDRI into this dome light. So what I want to do is try that render again. And I might leave this setting open, this window open, because then I can tweak it. The fun part of V-Ray is that oh, look at that. It's very dark. It's possibly because this HDRI is photographed at a different level, in which case the intensity, I just will push that up. I like to enter like 65 in. And then that looks better. You know, if I wanted to push it up a little bit more, I might go 75. I'm not too worried about this though, because for those that have taken our V-Ray course on SketchUp Campus, I do talk about light mix, which is a good time to add it. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to add 2 render channels, and one of them is called light mix. And what light mix does is it lets you render, I'm going to group this by group instances, that lets you change the lights after the rendering is done. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. I'm going to stop this render and I'm going to do a really quick static render. So bear with me. Is our chat still working? Because I don't see it. Is it still, everything's still working okay?
Yep.
With our platform?
So the chat, how it works is that they
disappear after a minute.
Eventually they eventually disappear. So as they're coming in, one question we did have is whether or not more CPU cores improve the performance in SketchUp or just the single core speed.
Yes, it's going to render more cores better. So I'm rendering CPU only because I'm on Mac. If you're on PC, you can render GPU or you can do hybrid. So GPU, I hear, and I don't know because I don't have a PC and I don't use GPU, but I hear it's not the result isn't as good quality, but it's faster. So you can also do what's called hybrid. So you're using both GPU and CPU at the same time, which may be the best solution. Again, have to kind of consult somebody who renders on PC. I do, however, want to show you this light mix thing. We'll kind of do this maybe at the end if we have time, but I did mention it. So what's cool about this is that you can turn on and off like the dome light here. So if I only have one light in the model and it's only the dome light, but if in this case, I could come back in and change the intensity. I bump the intensity up. See, it's already rendered, but now it's re-rendering it, but it's only taking just a second. It takes a couple of seconds to make those light changes. So if you wanted to go back and try 2, it's just decide how much light is the right amount. Of course, the more light, just like cameras, the more light that comes into the space, the more you're going to blow out the exterior. So we have to like balance that, right? So I'm going to leave that back to where it is at its default, and we'll come and play with that sort of at the very end if we have time. Yeah, I like the questions. These are great questions.
Yep. Somebody commented and said light mix is so great. Been addicted to it since I discovered it.
So let's do this. I'm going to set a camera scene right now. I'm going to call this interior, and I am going to make sure that my camera position is turned back on. That's one thing I sometimes forget, because these ones here, they don't have camera position saved. So I will come up here and say update, update, I believe that's all I had to do. Scenes, interior, camera. Okay, so that's great, because in that way, if I do rotate the camera and I click interior, wait, did it? It didn't do it. Did you see me? Okay, you saw me check it. Okay, I'm gonna try that again. Let's see if that worked. So section cut, rotate camera, go back to interior. Yep, we're back to that shot. Okay, so that's cool. I do want that shot. I do want something like this shot here because you go down these stairs and you see the living room and you see the ocean beyond. I don't know, maybe this isn't the best shot, but I think I already kind of, if you saw the sneak preview, the teaser, I kind of spoiled a little bit. So I'm just gonna go ahead and update that, set that to 2-point perspective. Now let's go ahead and, now that I kind of know possibly not exactly where my camera angle is, let's populate it. So what I love about Cosmos is that if you do use stuff if you do download stuff and like assets, you can just reuse them again. So like I know if I go over to this photo here, where was my reference photo? There's these 2 boulders. There's this arched lamp, this big curved sofa, some ottomans, and what looks like kind of a wood. I don't know. Sorry. I don't know what that is, but some sort of like maybe wood carved, like natural carved, organic coffee table, and some art on the wall, and maybe some plants coming into the terrace. I definitely want to get some palms or something in there. So let's do that. Let's add some stuff. So I'm in Cosmos. I'm going to grab a guitar. I've already downloaded this stuff. That's great. It saves me a little bit of time. I'm going to come back to Cosmos, and I'm just going to stay in my downloaded section. So that way, all the assets that I've already downloaded, I don't have to download them again. I just click import, and there they are. And if you're wondering, for those that just are new to rendering, this is common, that this is not what it's going to look like. This is a proxy. So if I go ahead and press my test render button one more time, you're going to see that it is a real guitar. So what it's doing is it's loading it from the hard drive. And while I'm at it, I'm going to come over to my camera and I'm going to click what's called auto exposure. See if that helps with the interior. Sometimes that helps. Sometimes I need to sometimes I need to change the light intensity from the environment. Other times I can add an exposure adjustment, and I just come in and literally just bump the exposure. I know that's maybe not the best way to do it. You really should dial your lighting in, but I'm often in a hurry and I just say, that's good enough for now. So there you go. So I'm going to bump that exposure up just a little bit.
Not as moody for sure. Yeah.
Not as moody. Okay. I like moody. So let's continue. Spend a couple more minutes just kind of grabbing some assets. I did get a couple things from the 3D warehouse, so I might go in and grab those. Here's that lamp. Luckily, it's funny because this is all from Chaos Cosmos, but they have guitars and they have art and they have, like here's some art. So I'm going to place that. And then what else is there? I think he's got a table and some books. So I'm going to grab some books and I'm going to grab, the couch doesn't really work very well, but he does have this cool lounge chair, right? I say he, I'm referring to Tony Stark. So if you go back to this image, there's a a little architectural lounge chair, some 2 guitars, some art. Oh, some boulders. Let's get some boulders before I forget. Again, sorry about that duplicate window thing. It's some sort of bug that I haven't had a chance to work out yet. I'm going to grab this boulder here. And what's cool about this is that just because it comes in this size does not mean that I need to keep it that size. So I want to kind of place that. And I'm just riffing, to use a term that, fun term here. So there's a little boulder there. And then I'm going to pull that same boulder and put it over here. I'm going to use the new flip tool. Yay, flip. I'm going to flip that around, flip it a couple of times, just so that it looks different from the one that's here. Kind of looks different. This is a little bit difficult for me because I'm trying to sort of arrange the furnishings from this viewpoint, which is not really a natural way to do it. I would normally get closer and I would go in and I would do it, you know, from right there. But for here, I think this is okay. I kind of want to see what shows up in this view. And again, we can adjust it. I may want to bring these forward. And the reason why is because this space looks quite large and these things are really far in the back. So this is a good time if anybody, I'm just kind of going through these motions. So if anybody, you know, has some fun facts they want to share about the film or your own rendering experience or anything like that, you know, let us know.
One person says, if it's Iron Man's house, you need to have his awesome swinging sticks kinetic sculpture.
You know what? That's one of those movie reference things that I didn't get. I need to see which side is the front and which side is the back of this piece of art that I dropped in there. So I'm going to do a quick render because I don't know. I don't know which side is the front. Okay, that's
you did bring it up a little bit earlier, but somebody says I want to learn a walkthrough with V-Ray, which is a good segue into SketchUp Campus. SketchUp Campus is our college level education series where you can learn from basic to advanced level SketchUp. The tutorials are all broken down into different courses, chapters, sections. They're very in-depth and very informative to learn everything about SketchUp. And the most recent course that we put out was on V-Ray.
Or interior
with
design.
Your host. Yeah, with your host, Eric. So if you want to learn more about that, you can go to learn.sketchup.com to check out those courses and to find one that is right for you.
Yeah, thanks, Donovan. And that's great. It is free, by the way, for those people who have taken a course. And I would highly recommend it. If you're getting into V-Ray and you don't really know where to start, definitely start with a course. It'll just baby step and walk you through. And I think it's great the fact that we have the ability to offer that, you know, Trimble and SketchUp team to offer that for free for people. So definitely take advantage of that while you can. Okay, so save, thank you. There are 2 things here that I could not find when I was just kind of doing a test when I was playing around on the Cosmos. And it is the sofa, and it's the coffee table and the ottoman. So it's 3 things, but I kind of lumped the ottoman and the coffee table together. So one thing I want to do is I think I'm just going to pop over to a cheat model, which is I had some furnishings, I just kind of found some and set them aside. So I think to save time, I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And I'm going to steal from myself. But you know what? It's not cheating if you steal from yourself, huh?
It's using your resources.
Yes. Yes. So in this case, I want to grab this couch, this coffee table, and this cow skin rug. And I think if I turn on my hidden geometry, I think I have a little table here as well. So grab those here, grab that, and grab that. I'm just going to group those together. Copy that. I'm going to grab her while I'm at it. That's just going to save one less thing that we don't have to go in and look for. Okay, so I'm going to put my section cut on. I'm going to turn it on for this one. And the reason why is because I'm going to place this and I'm going to need a little bit better idea of where this is going. So one thing, folks at home, if you can't find something that that will work, you'll notice here that I actually took a Chase lounge couch and just put 2 of them together. And it's now I've got a curved back couch. So of course I could model this from scratch. It probably wouldn't take me too long, but at this point, it's if I can find something that looks pretty good on 3D Warehouse, I'll probably start there. Start with that. At least I like to try. And then if it doesn't work, then I just go and model it myself or customize it myself. All right, so I want to do this. I want to bring that down. There's an extension. Sometimes it works. It's called drop GC that I use. So when I bring but sometimes it doesn't know exactly where to drop it. When I place entourage, sometimes they're floating like an inch above the surface and you don't even know because of the camera angle until you render and you see their shadows. So I use this drop GC extension, but the only problem with that is that it doesn't really work with a bunch of assets. It kind of works when you do them one at a time. So in this case, I'm just going to snap that until it sits on the floor. And I'm going to pop back over here. And then where's my lady? And she's here for scale, by the way, which she looks giant because that means my camera angle must be quite low. She's really just there for scale so that I can line her up with the horizon. I line her eyes up with the horizon, although she is up on a cliff. So her eyes may technically be above the horizon because she's not at sea level. Somebody maybe
Yep, seems to make sense, right?
Yeah. And she's just kind of entering into the space. I need to make sure that she's touching the ground. Oh, she was not. There you go. See, that was what I just said. Sometimes I will use a composition grid, and SketchUp 2023, by the way, and I think that some people, myself included, haven't quite got their heads around the overlay feature. Overlays are basically this way to you can bring in content, but you can keep whatever you're doing active. So you can bring stuff onto a screen. So one thing that's kind of cool, and this is just a little tangent. I believe there's one that I'm just started playing around with. If I go to annotations. So annotations uses the overlay function. So if I come over here to draw annotations, I can do model annotations or screen annotations. A screen annotation would be something like I would say to someone I'm working with, move, right? And I'm move. Okay, move over. I don't know, 5 foot. There's my annotation. Now that's a screen annotation. The reason why is because you'll notice if I move the camera, it stays there. So if I come up here to draw annotations, model annotations, and I draw something on the floor like this and say, needs a rug. What's cool about this is if I move, you'll notice that the screen one highlights over everything, whereas the ground one, I just drew something on my model. I just drew a line on my model. It's not actually there, it's an overlay. So the point I'm trying to make is that there is a new one called composition grids. So if you, I just think we're just starting to see what people are going to do or what developers are going to do with overlays. So I just want to put a little shout out for 2023 for some people who didn't already know that. It's maybe one of the smaller features that, so I want to erase those. So how do I do that?
We did have a comment that's really cool. It says, I'm an urban design student. 5 months ago, I started getting into SketchUp and I've been loving it ever since. Recently, I got into rendering, which has made it even better.
That's awesome. That's my background. So urban design, so landscape architecture, urban design. And then the Viz stuff was just for fun. Like nobody ever asked me like when I was doing this, what I want to say for real, like to do Viz. It was just something where it was like, it started because we would hire out. Often we would go do external renderings. When I worked for a master planning company, we would do these big like theme parks and stuff. And it was hard for somebody, a renderer in Singapore or in China or Thailand, to really understand the nuances of landscape architecture in Southern California or in the Middle East. And so we would often find as landscape architects, we're like, that's not right. That's not right. I mean, it's a great rendering, but we're like, that's not right. So I just kind of learned it to go in and be able to correct or add to the things that we weren't getting out of the landscape architectural renderings. So that's my story. Is that Colin Quinn? Do you guys know SNL? He says, that's my story, I'm sticking to it. Wasn't that his sign off? Are you an SNL fan, Donovan?
I didn't have SNL growing up, so that's a reference. It's a little beyond me.
I'm so sorry. That's sad. It's a sad story. So I'm kind of putting her in, the reason why that was a long story, I was talking about composition grids because sometimes I don't use the overlay yet, but sometimes I'll go into my styles and I'll create a new style and I'll go into the watermark. So if you've seen any of my courses, you'll know that I do this thing called files, graphic design resources, watermarks, and I put a composition grid in as a watermark. And that is done just, you don't have to do this. It's just a fun little step that I do if I want to think about the rule of thirds here. So I might move this camera around a little bit and place her head right on the intersection of that third. And maybe the table sits at the intersection. Maybe the lamp itself sort of goes over this intersection, and it creates some visual interest there. That's a fancy word, isn't it? Some visual interest. So I can either move the camera, or what I could do if I liked this scene better, I might, move her, into the space. I'm going to stop there because obviously I could keep doing this, so I'm just going to update this and I'm just going to turn off that style and we'll just call it good because I want to move on. We've got other stuff to do. So let's do a quick test render.
Don't
So
forget
we're
to
going to do
save.
two. We're going to do two. So this is the first one and we're at 12. Well, my time, 12:16. So we've got 45 minutes. We're going to do one more 45 minutes. So this one, I just need to do a couple of I want to do a couple of things. It's a little dark. And I also want to show you how to get that ocean view into the shot because we lost it when I bumped the exposure up. Just waiting for it. It does take, a minute. For folks at home, pretty cool. You got some nice high quality assets. I want to move those guitars sort of off to the side. They shouldn't be blocking the desk. You'll notice that the assets that came in with Cosmos had lights built into it. So that's actually kind of cool. So this lamp, I think, is turned on. So speaking of lights, I'm going to pretend like there's some light coming in from this skylight, which is, we have the sort of our light source number one, the environmental lighting coming from outside. That's not really enough to light our scene. So what I'm going to do is come in and add what I like to use. Again, I'm self-taught. So if I'm wrong, like if somebody does render and they might say, well, that's actually not the way to do it, I would be the first to admit that it's probably not the way to do it. The reason why is because I just know what works for me. I don't know why it works. I don't know. I hope that it works for everybody else here. The other thing you can do too is if you brought stuff in from 3D Warehouse like this, you can come in here like this table. Maybe that wood texture is okay, but I might want to at least go in and add a reflection to it to get a little bit more detail. So I'm going to say edit in V-Ray, and then I'm going to come here and add a reflective coat. And then I might bring the glossiness down just a little bit. So it's like lacquered. So if I go in here and if I look at this, so now I've got this light, and now I've got this reflection I put on the wood. So now I want to go into the light settings. So that sphere light, it by default, it will show up in reflections. So I don't want it to show up in my glass. So I definitely want to turn that off. And I'm going to take specular off as well because that's sort of like it's light bounce. It's not a direct reflection. It's like an indirect reflection. So I want to turn that off as well. And I'll just light the room. Actually, I don't know. Maybe that's okay. We can try it. The other thing you can do is you can change the color. So if you wanted to warm the lamp up a little bit, you can go Kelvin scale. What I'm going to do is not worry too much about this because remember I said light mix. You can adjust the lighting after the fact. So I'm just going to leave that alone. I'm going to leave I don't even know what the intensity should be. I'm just going to say 100. I always like to bump it up. And then if I need to, I can bring it back down after the fact. So I've got the dome light on, sunlight off, sphere light on. Oh, the other thing with the dome light too, is you can use this button called use transform. So what that does with the dome light is if you don't select use transform, then when you rotate the dome light, the image inside stays. So in this case, if for some reason I want the light to come more directly into the window, we're going to try that right now. So we're going to go ahead and look at how those two things work. Styles, turn composition grid off, and let's do this. I want to call this one done. So I want to just get this lighting right. Hey, wait,
Again,
that light
you're blowing my mind, Eric.
It didn't. That light,
and you got comments coming in saying looks great.
But that light's not invisible though. Didn't you see me check it? Did you not see me? I thought I checked it and said invisible. Oh, I did not. Invisible. So not only do I not want to see it in the reflections, I don't want to see it at all. I don't want to see the light. I only want to see the light source. Okay, I do this. I do this when it renders and just say, oh, don't crash on me, you know, because we all know we get some crash. So I don't know whether that's internally illuminated or not, but I do like having that light source there. I think it needs it, but you can see it's also hitting the reflections on the glass. So I must have missed something there. So what I'm going to do is find that sphere light. I'm going to say take off specular, which I think that's the reflection. So there's two kinds of reflections. Turn that off so I don't see it in the glass. The last thing I want to do is just double check this. I selected use transform. So I'm going to move that 45 degrees. I may have to turn my exposure down for this back down, just so I can see what's the light that's coming in just for a moment. And I can turn that back on and just back up in a second. So I want to take this here and I want to just see where is that light coming in. It looks like the sunset. If I go 45 degrees, it looks like there's the sun. I'm not sure if that was the right. Actually kind of cool. Is that cool? Should we leave that? Should we leave it like that? I don't know. I second guess myself sometimes, but.
Wow. No, it's looking good. Good contrast, good colors, good shading.
So what I'm doing is I'm using the rotate tool and I'm just entering in like numbers. So if I want to say -15, it's going to push the sun that way. If I put in +15, it's going to push it to the left. I don't think that did. Okay, I'm going to pull the sun to the left. I'm just going to go 18 right there. I'm just going to leave it there. We're going to go with that. I'm going to stop that. I'm going to kick my, I'm going to move these guitars like I said, and we're going to move on to the next one because we're going to do one more render. We're going to do an exterior. So I'm going to move this a little bit more into the shot. This is like the artist. This is the fun part about this, folks at home. I hope it's fun to watch, but this is what's fun to do. It's the tinkering, you know, this is why I don't use Lumion, and there's nothing against Lumion because it has a purpose. Obviously it's a very popular software, but like when they take the control away from you and they just say, this is it, that's great for the people who don't want that control, but it's not good for someone who does. So, yeah, that's it. We're going to call this one. I'm going to do one last thing. I'm going to come into camera. For those of you that who do know V-Ray, but maybe don't use this, there's a little thing called effects, and you can come over here and add a vignette. So I'm going to add a vignette to this so it darkens the edges a little bit, puts the contrast maybe on the center, and then I'm going to run a little bit of a higher, no, I'm going to do a low res render because we're going to do this. I don't want you guys to sit and wait, y'all at home. I'm going to press render. This is a static render this time. I'm going to do this. You'll see that it's a little bit darker, but I'm going to adjust the exposure after the fact as opposed to adding more lights. But where is my light though? Is it still there? It should be there. Okay. I have it in light mix, so I can double check it in light mix afterwards. So we're going to wrap this one up because we're going to have just enough time to do that second one. This is the interior rendering that we said we're going to do. I do want to push highlight burn down, exposure up. I'm okay if it's a little moody. I'm okay with some moodiness. So highlight burn, if you don't know what highlight burn does, it blows it out. So if you turn on your color clamping, you can see all of that color there. All of this weird psychedelic stuff, that just means that it's overexposed. It's being blown out. So you can use this as a tool to sort of help guide. So you pull that highlight burn down. And I'm okay with a little bit of blown out because I think that's what you're going to get in real life. But what you don't want is maybe so much blowout. Like if coming in from outside, I think that sort of makes sense that we blow that out. So I'm going to leave that there. And then again, you can adjust the highlight burn and you can adjust the exposure. But I do want to see what's happening inside. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that blown out. Bump the contrast a little bit. Okay, we're going to call it. We're going to call this one good. So let me show, before I wrap this up, I want to do one more thing. I want to show you that I blew out my background on this, and that's okay. And the reason why is because if you come over here to, I added a material channel. So if I wanted to bring that background back, I would save this out, and then I would use this, I could remove the background, and then I could do 2 exposures essentially. So what I would do is I would export this along with my final rendering, and then I would come in and I would adjust the exposure and I would save it twice. I would go in and bring that down, and I would save this out. So I would have 2 basically exposures, and that's what like an HD, the HDR setting in your phone camera does. Yeah. Is that too much? Is that too technical? Is that like in the weeds?
Nope, that's good.
Okay, I'm gonna save that. We're gonna move on, folks. Desktop, we're gonna go into Tony Stark's house, and we're gonna call this Render 01 Interior. Okay, and what's cool about this is once you've done this much work, you know, you've kind of done the hard work on it, you can just go in and say, well, maybe I want to render it from another angle, or maybe I want to do something like a 1-point perspective instead of a 2-point perspective for drama. I love it when you get creative with the camera angles, even get in close on something really interesting. I'm just going to leave it there. Turn on my section shortcut because I just found myself inside of a wall. Any questions? Anything, any big issues, Donovan, as far as before we move on to the exterior, and then we'll do one more and wrap up?
Well, we did have a question that I think you just answered. V-Ray SketchUp has camera clipping, and since you just went into a wall, I guess that does kind of answer that question. Yes.
The camera clipping issues have mostly been fixed in 2022, I believe. There was an update. Some people are mad about that though, because they used camera clipping as it's a bug essentially. When you set parallel projection on an interior, the camera clips objects. So it's basically treating it like a section plane. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that was fixed. Unfortunately, some people use that bug. Oh, I know what I want to do. So yeah, what I use the section cut to sort of like my get out of jail. So I just turn my section on and then I'm out of the wall. I can pop out of the wall. Now, as good as Chaos Cosmos is, I don't like being 100% dependent on Cosmos. What if one day they just pulled Cosmos and you're like, I don't have access to any plants? So I have purchased a few of these, what's called lab work or Werk, if you're German, Labwerk, which means foliage. And I'm typing in palm, which means foliage in German. So this guy, Tim, who works for Labwerk, he's one of the owners, a great guy, met him at base camp in Vancouver. So definitely, if you're looking for some good quality plants and you're not want to go expand a little bit beyond what Cosmos offers, you may want to check that out. I want to go with this one. It's called the Desert Fan Palm. It's actually not the right one. I want what's called Washingtonia robusta, and this is Washingtonia filifera, but I'm going to go ahead and take it because it's close enough. So I'm going to grab that there. Now this is kind of interesting. Let me see. I don't want to do royal palms. We're in Southern California, so you could do Carinari date palms. You can't do coconut palms. They don't grow here. Mediterranean fan palms are great here. So I'm going to grab one of those and I'm going to set this here. And then it looks weird because the section cut it off. So what I want to do really fast so I don't run out of time, is I want to come over here and just place some of these around the landscape. And I have to be careful how I do this because depending on the camera angle, it's going to be floating in outer space. So I want to try and, if I can, snap that. I don't know. Do you think one should be in there? Maybe one should be in there.
While you're doing that, and I know we have moved past this, but there was a comment that came in that said, just FYI, the sphere light is going to give you issues where it's intersecting with the ribs of the skylights. Might want to move it up when you do a final render.
That's a good point. If you have a light that's inside of a wall, you can get what's called light leak, which means that there's light inside the wall that can come out of corners, and it's also going to give you a weird shadow pattern. So it's because the light is being clipped. So that didn't do what you should have done, which is bring it down and let it just illuminate the space on the inside, or bring it up and let it illuminate from the outside down. Putting it in the middle like that probably wasn't the best. I was being lazy. So thank you, whoever pointed that out. I'm going to start a YouTube channel called The Lazy Modeler. So with these palms, what's cool about this library is that you're getting not just this palm, you're getting each tree gives you 36 trees, because what you're getting is you get 3 ages for 3 varieties, and you're getting 4 seasons. So if you do the math, 3 times 3 times 4, I think that's 36. So what I'm going to do, what's cool about this is if I just copy this and bring this over here, I can just make this unique. And by making it unique, I can switch from variant 1 to variant 2. Or if I don't like variant 2, I can go variant 3. So I'm going to go with variant 2 on that one, because I don't think variant 3 on this one is good. It's a little fat. It's a little chunky. So maybe that's okay. So I'm going to go with those 2 variants on those palms, and then just kind of copy these around. And I'm going to use this, I'm just going to manually rotate these, because just to keep things moving quickly. There's some extensions you can use to scatter stuff. I want to get this plus sign here. I want to put these palms here. I want to put some here. And I'm going to use the rotate tool just to kind of spin them around. Let's go with 90 degrees, just so it doesn't feel exactly the same. And these ones are the same thing. I'm going to make unique, and I'm going to change the variety. So this one I'm going to go fully grown. I don't know if that's the right thing to do. This is where landscape for me gets fun, because if you know plants, then I want to make this unique. Then you get to kind of, I don't know, you get to kind of mess around a little bit. Don't want a young one. That's not going to work. Oh, that was funny. That's not going to work. Let's go with that. All right. So I made all of these old, which I didn't mean to do because I was working on the opposite one. So I'm just going to grab some of these around here. Now, this is where if you've got a bunch of these like this, and I'm just copying and pasting these Mediterranean fan palms around, but if you've got a bunch of them like this, you may be better off to use, to select them all. So you could go select all instances. So I would select all of them like that, and I would come up here and go extensions, Chris Fulmer tools, scale and rotate multiple randomly. So what I'm going to do is scale them. I'll leave it at 1 for the minimum, 1.2 for the maximum, 30 and 300. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scale and rotate them from the center point. You can see now they all have a little bit of variety that they didn't have before. So, and I'm going to save that if nobody reminded me to. So this is the reason why I'm doing this work here, is because I kind of want to capture something from the pool deck, and I'm not quite sure if I want to do it looking at the pool deck or if I want to do it from looking from the pool deck. We could do both if we want to. Okay, so that's because remember we're looking out.
Would this be considered an infinity pool?
This is considered an infinity edge pool because it drops, sorry, trying to get the right shot here. I'm trying to get close to it, because the water goes over the edge into a trough. And what's cool about that is depending on where you're sitting, the infinity edge actually would line up with the edge of the ocean, the horizon. So the pool you're sitting in almost feels if it extends out. It's called borrowed, the landscape term is called borrowed view, because you're borrowing the horizon for the pool by creating that connection. All right. How about we put some some chairs out, maybe?
Let's do it.
All right. I'm just going to type in pool and see what comes up. Oh, that's in my downloaded. Nothing. Okay, that's it. So let's go with lounge. What comes up? Interior. Okay. So let's go outdoor.
Matt just corrected us. It's an Avengers infinity pool.
Oh,
Meta humor.
Isn't that one of the names? Infinity War? Is that where that reference is from?
Yeah.
you got Matt for the win. Matt and Aaron and Jody definitely have us beat Donovan on the pun game. I think we've got a lot of work to do, but that's okay. We
gotta up our wit.
We're new at this live modeling thing, by the way. For those, Aaron is a seasoned veteran. So's Tyson. It's not a competition, but at the same time, they have years and years of good practice doing this. So our inspiration. Now let's get a person in there. No, I'll wait. Let's see how this looks. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let's just run a test render. I always just kick off a test one. We'll move. I'm doing interactive because we're going to move around. Hope everyone, it's still working for everyone on YouTube and for people that are just joining us. This is going to take a little bit longer.
We seem to have had a few moments of downtime on the YouTube channel, but it looks like everything's back up and everybody's good to go.
Nice. So this is where I might take the exposure down just a little bit for this part. There's a lot more to do to get these edges, you know, the landscape right and put the materials, but just to keep things going, I'm going to go to the pool deck and we're just going to kind of keep it simple. We're going to do a tight view. I do want to show you though, the landscape, those trees, the sort of level of detail in that entourage. So if I kind of zoom in a little bit, so it's going to slow down just a little bit. And that's because I've got so many of these very high poly trees. They're not high poly in my model. They're low poly, they're epoxies, but they're high poly in the render. They're very, very, so if I zoom in, you can see just, you know, the level of detail is great. So these are fantastic. So they work it, so you can zoom way in or you can zoom way out. So I don't know. I mean, you tell me. I feel like if I do one from looking at the pool, I have a lot more work to do. So I think that by being almost to go to my YouTube channel, the Lazy Modeler, I think I'm going to grab a view from the pool deck. It's 46 feet. I want to come up 6. So I'm going to go 52 feet. I want to kind of grab one here.
Somebody recommended random rotate the chairs.
Yes. We've got a modeler in the house. We've got a renderer in the house. So a little bit of random rotation like this is a tip we actually cover in the SketchUp to V-Ray for Interiors course. And the reason is when you have multiple copies of something, even just by giving it this slight rotation or by moving one of these out of order, you're adding that little bit of realism. So I know if you look down here on them like this, you can see that it's not just a straight copy all the way across. So mirroring things, flipping things, scaling things, and of course, just doing those little minor rotations are going to help a lot. Hey, looks like I'm in the pool. Huh? I'm looking at my screen, my other screen. I'm ready to go for a swim. That's kind of cool. I mean, given the fact that you've got that sunset right there. Whoa, sorry, I'm going into the pool. That's why I think that's kind of cool. What if we moved it around here? So I got some of that nice vegetation in. Oh, I'm in a wall. And cutting section didn't help because the section was cut above the wall. One thing I didn't do is you can change the field of view. So sometimes if you're hitting a wall or something, by default, the field of view, it's 35 degrees. The eye sees wider. So in a landscape view like this, I might want to pull out and do something more like 45 or even 50 degrees. So I'm going to type in, I'm going to come over here, hit field of view, 50, enter. I don't know why that's not working. Why is that not working? It's because it's Friday. I always use that excuse. It's Friday. So if something doesn't work. So what I want to do is I really like this pool and I really like how it really does disappear. It really does become sort of one with the ocean. So I like that. I don't like this wall to my right. I can either get rid of that myself if I wanted to. If I wanted a shot where I wanted the pool edge, the coping here to be in the shot, I may actually go in, and this is where you get to have some artistic license. I don't know whether that's a good thing or not, but if I didn't want that, I might come in here, not do that. I would just group this, hide it, turn off my hidden geometry, make sure that my hidden stuff's not on. And there you go. And Bob's your uncle.
Matt said your hat is all ready for the pool deck. And
I wore this hat.
All we need now is a SketchUp towel on one of the loungers.
I wore this hat specifically because we were going to Malibu for this one. Either that or we were going to Hollywood. So whether we're going to Hollywood or Malibu, I've got my Southern California and my LA hat on today. That's okay. That's okay. I'm going to stop it there. I think we're close. So here's what I want to do. Here's what I want to do in our remaining 15 minutes together. I want to go in and I want to grab this dome light. And I'll show you why. Because because that dome light was, I put it in inside because we were catching the shot from there. So from here, what I want to do is have it here. Now I have two choices. I can either have, I copied it. So this is the same dome light, which means I can control the rotation from two different points. But what it's going to do, it's going to change the where the sun position is for my interior shot. So if I haven't rendered that one yet, I may not want to do that, because if I rotate this, it's going to rotate it in the interior shot, assuming that I liked it there and I want to keep it. So I can go over here and I can make this unique. And by making it unique, if I open up my asset editor, I have two dome lights. So I would want to, now that I have two, I would label them interior, and I have dome light number 1, which is a copy, exterior. So not only can I adjust the intensity on those, so I might bring that down a little bit to say something like 50, but there's two of them now. So what I would want to do is just make sure that for this scene, I toggle the interior dome light off. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to turn the interior one off. And now when I rotate this exterior one or make changes to it, it's totally fine. So let's go ahead and get, next thing I want to do, save. You'll notice I'm save like every 5 minutes. I do want to go pop into my styles. I'm going to put my watermark on just for a minute, because I think this is going to help me. This may help me get kind of something cool. I've got this palm tree on my left that I can use. If I zoom in, depending on where I zoom in, I could use the horizon. So if I looked down, the horizon line could hit that top bar. That might make the scene too top heavy. I could pull this way up if I wanted to, and this would give me more sky. It would allow my pool edge to hit that bottom line. I don't know what the answer is exactly, but I do know that I need a person. So I'm going to come over here. I think this might be my last Cosmos asset. This lady, is this her? Yes, I think that's her. And she is, could be he. That just happens to be the one that I found. Does not need to be a she. I'm going to put her here. And I think what I think about that does for me is I like having a person in my views. You don't have to do it every time. Sometimes it's cool not to, but there's something nice about a person. It gives it a sense of scale. It reminds you that this is a place for people. This is not just an empty pool, showroom pool. So I like to put some people in there. And for right now, let's do that. Let's just do that. I'm gonna move this over. I actually liked being in the water more, so I am gonna move this over, and then I'm gonna call it, because we're gonna move on. I'm gonna put her.
Yep. Someone did make a comment. Just render the shots which pay, which kind of gets to the point that one of the reasons why we do this is for paying gigs, to show people, like,
That's right,
to conceptualize what these things look like.
That's ultimately you're doing the shot that, the client, it's going to get you the job. That's going to sell you either going to sell you the job, or you're going to keep the job. So what I try to do is I think about the story. So what is the story? If the story is the person here by herself, there's a little bit of like, she's out here by herself. That's cool. I'm going to add that. Check my scenes, make sure that for scene 5, make sure that my camera location is checked. I'm going to call this exterior. Save, turn off my watermark, and we're just going to run with it. We're running with it. Yeah, that's the story. The story is that she's out here just by herself. Tony Stark is off saving the world somewhere, and she's left here in this amazing $100 million mansion, and she's tired of talking to Jarvis, by the way. Fun fact, is the AI in the house, if you didn't know. And what does Jarvis stand for, Donovan?
So Jarvis, let me find this fun fact that we put together. Jarvis stands for just a rather very intelligent system.
So this young lady is out here. Tony Stark has ditched her. She's a little bit she's loving the view, but at the same time, she's probably feeling a little bit resentful. But she's got Jarvis to keep her company. Maybe Jarvis has queued up her favorite Spotify song. And we're going to stop there. Now, one thing I want to do is I want to add some pool lights. I think the contrast between the pool edge and the ocean Actually, let me do, before I do that, let me pull the sun around. Let me see if the sun, if it makes sense to put the sun in the angle. And then I want to add some pool lights, because I think by doing those lights, it's going to, it'll help. It'll help. So what I'm gonna do one last time, and if you want to save some time here, pro tip, what you can do if you don't want to use up so much rendering power, if you're just doing a lighting test, you could come over here to your settings and hit material override. But one thing you want to do with that, if you're doing a pool or you're doing glass, you probably want to grab that material, grab that water material. Let me see, I only need one. I only need to do it once, not twice. Grab that water material and say can be overridden. Turn that off. So when I do this next little test render, what it's going to do is it'll turn off all the materials for everything except the water. And if you wanted to do the same thing for the other waves, the ocean waves, you could say turn off that. And then what you would do is you would get essentially this kind of what's called a clay model. And then this might help me. This is something we cover in the interiors course, even though we're doing an exterior right now, is get your lighting dialed in, and using this kind of color override or this material override is a nice way to do it, because it allows you to kind of focus just on the lighting. And I'm going to put that sort of to the right. I'm going to say that's good. Let's go ahead and put those pool lights in, and then we're going to kick off a final render. I want to do an aerial though. I'd love to do an aerial, but I'll do that in my own time. Pool lights. I'm going to use a sphere light again. I just use the sphere lights because they're versatile. And I'm going to copy this. What's that? Potato. Yeah. Let's call the whole thing off. Yep. And I'm going to just kind of grab it there and divide that by 4. Divide by 5 if I want more pool lights. And then I want to grab these and I want to kind of put them in here. I don't know where these lights would be. If, I'm not a pool designer. So what I do want is I don't want them going up like that. I want them staying down. So sometimes when you're doing this, it helps to make sure that when you're doing that move, you move along an edge. So I don't just do an arbitrary move. I move along an edge so that I'm actually snapping along that line, so I don't end up putting them up in outer space. Otherwise I have to move them back. So let's see if that looks better. That should look better. So now I'm going to select all instances, group them, and bring them down and make sure that they are in the water. So I want to basically drop them below the water line. And if I don't want them going through the ground, which I don't think they are, because that was the comment that one of our helpful viewers pointed out. So if they do touch the ground, I want to scale them down just a little bit so that they're free floating in space. Sphere light, I'm going to call this pool. And then I'm going to go ahead and give this a little bit of a color. I don't know if I need to actually, to be honest, because I think the color by default is going to pick up the color from the pool, even if it was just white. You also can change the color, not in light mix, not just the intensity. I want to do the same thing. I want to say invisible. I want to say do not affect reflections, or specular in this case. I do want to just see the light. I want to see the light. And
I'm excited for this. I think it's going to look great.
Okay, so here's the problems. I want to shift those. I may want to shift those over a little bit. So what I would do is come over to my tags, turn the water off. And by turning the water off, I can go now into the water. And I may want to just center those. I don't know. Just aesthetically, it may look better if it's more in line with my view. But yeah, we're going to go with that. Okay, here we go. Moment of truth, folks. Almost done. Turn off my material override. Just going to trust in the system, in the process on this one. Keep turning my panels off that keep wanting to pop up. It's a little bit annoying. So, and one last save. Oh, the other thing would be cool would be uplights on the plants, but I'm going to stop. Got to stop me.
Feature creep. We're getting into feature creep.
Feature creep. Yep. Well, I'm watching the time. I have my clock here. So this is, oh, where's the light? Okay, so what's happening here is the intensity of that pool light probably is just way too low. So if I come over here and take this 300, and I'm just going to bump this up to 30 by default and bump that up to 500, I can now see the lights really softly. And if I want to only focus on that area, I can do what's called a render window. And what it's going to do, it's only going to render that. Although I'm getting a little weird reflection, which I may need to change that. So I'm going to go 1000 on these, and I'm starting to see it. Starting to see the light. Why is it being weird on me? To see what it's doing? Oh, it looks good from there, from that angle.
Oh, wow. That makes a difference, doesn't
Does
it?
that look? Yeah. So now it was this one here. That one was sunk because this is what I was telling you. This one is sunk in halfway. So with this one, I either need to get rid of it or I need to scale it down. But scaling it down might look weird. So I'm just going to get rid of this one. And we're just going to lose 1 on this edge. And the light starts there. Again, these aren't real lights. They're not based in like the pool design, what would work. It's just, okay. All right, we're doing it. We're going with it. We're doing a static render, and I'm going to do a couple of edits in Light Mix. And I'm going to open up the 2 renders, and I'm going to say, I'm going to let everyone go home. Go finish your lunch. Go if you're in the UK. If you're in Europe, have dinner, have a beer.
I'd swim there. Looks great.
Now, this is where we're just going to do some minor edits. I do want to look at color hue saturation. I want to look at color balance. I might want to look at filmatic tone map. I don't even know what that does exactly, but it kind of boosts the intensity and the contrast a little bit. I do want to look at that light mix, and I want to come over here and take that sphere light in the pool and bump that up. And maybe even come over to the color balance and start to add some red, sunset reds. I don't know. Some purples, some blues. That might be too much, but I'm also going to pull the saturation out. A little bit of the saturation out. I'm trying to be like
Photography.
I'm just trying to make it kind of moody.
Very much a purple hour.
Yeah, I'm just trying to give it like a little bit of mood, you know? I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but denoiser, put that on as mild. And yeah, so this is cool. The environment light, the dome light here is dome light exterior. So if I turn that off, it's pretty cool. You can just work on, like, if it's easier, I could turn the dome light off. I can work on just the pool lights. And once I get that good, so I would definitely want some more ambient lights. I would want like a sphere light, an uplight on the palms. If I was doing this for real properly, I'd spend more time than this. This is really just more like we're just having fun. So I am going to come back to my hue my exposure, and I'm going to look at that highlight burn, whether I want to push that. Oh, you know what's cool? Sorry, I forgot. Lens effects. If you're staring right at the sun, you probably want to enable bloom and glare. What you're going to get is you're going to get this really cool, almost as if it's coming off the camera. So you're going to get that sort of lens flare, and you can sort of go in and you can change the shape of it. Lens dust, obstacle image. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. Was that too much? Do I need to dial it back?
No, that sells it. That looks fantastic.
That looks sick. Okay. I'm going to save this here. Save, and I'm going to call this render 02 exterior, and I can't believe that we are finishing just a few minutes early. Exterior and save. So I'm going to pull up, since we do have 2 minutes, I'm just going to pull up this little image here, and I'm going to pull up the renders. Now I did these as low res to keep things moving quick. So they're not great quality. If I was going to do this for real, I'd go back into my render settings. I would say like 3,000 pixels, 4,000 pixels wide. I'd re-render it. So you're going to get some noise and you're going to lose some detail because of that. That's just, doing it live though. That's just what we got to do. So if I take this here and I compare this to, I don't want to see the view thumbnails, view sidebar. And I pull this over here and go view, sidebar. Yeah. Is that? Yeah, it's not perfect. it's not a perfect replication, but the elements are there, the rock and the reflections. And what I would do is I would do another render on that, and so I could bring in the ocean. So I would do that as a different exposure, and I would bring those two and merge them together, like in Photoshop, something like that. So
got a lot of comments coming in saying, great job. Eric is the god of rendering, and this has been an amazing session.
I would not say that, but I do say thank you all. I want to say this is not about me. This is about our audience. So this is done. This is all done for you. This is, we want to make sure that not only is it fun and entertaining, but that you learn something, right? You walk away saying, hey, that was interesting, but at the same time, I picked up a couple of tricks. So hopefully you picked up a couple of tricks at least today. And if you're not into rendering, that's okay. At least you kind of feel like if that's something you want to get into, or if that's something you just want to be more aware of, even if you're working with people that do renderings and you don't do them, that's just, it's all good. It's all good. That's what I'm going to end with. I'm going to go ahead and get my hero
Dwayne
shot.
chimed in and said, I work in SketchUp and V-Ray every day, and you still gave me a long list of new things to try out.
See, there we
Great
go.
job.
Even someone who's been working, see, but that's the thing. I do the same thing. Like I go in and I tinker around and I go, oh crap, I didn't even know that you could do that. And so I love it. I love it when I learn something new. I love it when you learn something new. I love it too when you share tips, when I learn something new while I'm doing this and someone says, try it this way. And I think I didn't even think to try it that way. That's a great idea. So I love learning new stuff. I'm going to call it there. I'm going to switch over to my big head because I'm just going to say thanks, and we're going to end on some jams. I don't know why I'm going big. I just feel like I start big. I want to end big. Donovan, any last words before we put some music on and say goodbye to everyone, other than thank you?
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This has been an adventure. We're going to do this again, multi-platform streaming. Hope we've kept up with all the comments and questions that you guys have sent in over the different platforms. We're excited to expand this reach we have of teaching people SketchUp, showing them the possibilities, especially with professionals like Eric, showing you all the amazing things that you can do within the program, with add-ons, with all that kind of stuff to take it to that next level.
All right. Well, thanks again, everybody. Don't forget, we do this every Friday, unless it's a holiday or something like that, or somebody's sick. But for the most part, we're here every Friday. That's noon Mountain Time. So if you just stumbled upon it today, be sure to come back next time. If you're watching on YouTube, or even if you're not, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, because that way you're going to get those notifications. So when we go live, it's going to say we're going live. And yeah, and feel free to comment, because I'll go back in after this. This is going to be posted. I'm going to go back in after this, read the comments and reply to everybody, because I know I'm not able to do that right now directly. So I'm going to end here as well by saying thank you all very much for giving me the time to do this, the platform, and we will see you again soon.
See you, everybody.